Hi, everyone. So we've got ACT number 5 to get through today. This is the one that you took this week uh, for our class grade. Let's take a look at number 1. If 5y minus 1 over 3 equals negative 6, then what must be true? Well, if I multiply both sides by 3, I get 5y minus 1 equals negative 18. And if I add 1 to both sides, I get 5y equals negative 17, or y equals negative 17 over 5. That's choice C. C for number 1. Number 2. 2 says the expression 12z to the 10th over 4z squared is equivalent to what? Well, 4 goes into 4 once, and 4 goes into 12 3 times. And when the bases are the same and we're dividing, we can subtract the exponents. So I get 3z 10 minus 2 is 8. 3z to the 8th. And that is H. Number 3. We've got f of x is x squared minus 18 over x plus 2. And we're asked to find f of 12. That means we plug a 12 in for all the x's. That gives me 144 minus 18 over 14. That's 126 over 14, which is 9. So f of 12 is 9, and that's choice C. 4. Okay, so we need to see the picture here because this is a composition problem. It says, how many articles did she write in the first 3 weeks of the month? Well, 3 weeks elapsed, and we read up to that dot, which goes over to 15 movies watched. So then we move to the next graph, and we start with 15 movies watched, and we go up to that dot, and we see 12 articles written. So J is our answer for that one. Okay? J. 5. 5 says, what is the value of 117 minus 54 plus 6 rounded to the nearest 10? Well, when I do the subtraction, I get 69, and if I round that to the nearest 10, that's going to be 70. So this is D for number 5. 6. Restaurant, 4 napkins at each table, plus 20 extra napkins held in reserve. If the restaurant has 100 napkins, okay, so 100 equals 4 napkins for each table, plus an extra 20. If I solve this equation, I end up with 4n equals 80, and so n, the number of tables, equals 20. There are 20 tables here, so 6 is G. And 7. If 4w minus 2 minus w equals 46, then what's w equal? Well, let's distribute. 4w minus 8, 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, minus w equals 46. 3w minus 8 equals 46. 3w equals 54 when we add 8 to both sides. And if I divide both sides by 3, I get 54 divided by 3, or 18, which is choice D. D for number 7. Okay, let's take a look at problem number 8. 6 points appear on the number line in the order shown below. Which ray does not contain Wx? Okay, so remember, when we name a ray, we name it starting with its endpoint and one other point. So xy would be ray xy. So when I look at this number line here, Wx does not contain Wx. Well, ray uy starts here, goes through y and keeps going in that direction. That contains wx. How about vz? V starts over here, goes through that point, and keeps going in that direction. YV, well, that starts over here, goes through this point, and keeps going. So all of these have contained WX. When I come to YZ, that starts here and goes this way. It doesn't go anywhere near WX, which is why J is my answer to number 8. 9. A, B equals 32. B, C equals 40, and C equals 5. Well, if C equals 5, we know then that 5B equals 40, and if we divide both sides by 5, we get B equals 8. I'll take that B and plug it into this first equation. A times 8 is 32, and I'll get A equals 4, which is choice capital A. 10. Yun Yun swam 4 laps and her coach recorded the times, respectively, for a total of 175.8 seconds. She must swim the 5th lap in X seconds in order to have an average time of 43 seconds. So we're saying the total amount of time, that's for the first 4, plus the 5th lap, divided by 5 laps, should be 43. Now, we could multiply both sides by 5 and subtract this to find out how much time, but when we look at the choices, we're just asked for the correct setup, and I see our correct setup for G. G is our answer for 10. How about 11? How many integers from 123 to 132 is the 10 digit greater than the ones digit? Well, if I were awake, I would be able to just say, oh, well, because of this, it must be this number. But let's try this. 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, 131, and 132. So how many of these have the tens digit greater than the ones digit? Well, look, these are all 2's, and these are all bigger than 2. So none of these. 3 is bigger than 0, 3 is bigger than 1, 3 is bigger than 2. I get 3 as my answer here, and that's choice B for number 11. 12. The number of points Julie scores in a basketball game is proportional to the amount of time she practiced that week. So this is a direct variation model. The points are proportional to, that's our constant of proportionality, like we talked about in chapter 1 in August, to the amount of time she spent. Okay, well, we're going to need to solve for that K. Let's keep reading. Last week, she scored 20 points, and she had been practicing 12 hours. 20 equals K times 12. So if we divide both sides by 12, we get 20 over 12, which reduces to, because I can take a 4 out of each of those, 5 over 3. So let's take this K value and plug it back in here to get K equals 5/3 T. Then we read a little further. It says, how many hours should she practice if she wants to score 35 points? Does 35 go here or here? Well, P is the number of points, so I'm going to plug 35 here, 5/3 T. To get T by itself, I could divide both sides by 5/3, but that's a little uncomfortable for me, and I'm not sporting a calculator right now, so I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal, 3/5. And then I'll be able to cancel and get time. 35 times 3 divided by 5, or 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 35 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21. She must have practiced 21 hours, and that's choice K. K for number 12. 13. What fraction of rectangle ABCD lies in quadrant 4? Well, I notice the dimensions on this rectangle. They go from 2 to -3. That means the whole side length is 5. And they go from -4 to +2. That means this whole side length is 6. The whole area of this shape is 30. Well, what part of the area is in this quadrant, in fourth quadrant? Well, that width is 2, and that height is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. I reduce that fraction, I get 1/5, which is why B is my choice for number 13. 14. I bet we can fit that in here. 14. Which of the following is equivalent to this expression, to z plus 3 minus 9 over 5 plus 4z plus 3? 2z plus 6 minus 9, 5 plus 4z plus 12. I combine like terms and I get 2z minus 3 over 4z plus 17. That's a 17. And that's choice K. Choice K for number 14. Okay, let's move on. Remember, our goal is to get done in an hour. 15. The circle with the equation x squared plus y squared equals 49. Well, we know x squared plus y squared equals radius squared, and that means that our circle centered at the origin has a radius of 7. 7, 7, -7, -7. And what do they ask us here? At which 2 points does this circle intersect the x-axis? Oh, at 7 and -7. So B is my answer to number 15. I had to remember from the second day of school the equation for a circle. Remember the full equation for the circle that we talked about then, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. 16. 16 is an augmented matrix, and we talked about these briefly in December. We have 4, -3, 13, and 5, 2, 45. Okay, so these are our coefficients, and these are our answers, so I could write 4x minus 3y equals 13, and 5x plus 2y equals 45. And that seems to be choice H. H for number 16. 17. 1905, the distance between the edge of the lake and the marker was 75 meters. Okay, I'm going to say time equal to 0 is 1905. In 2005, the distance between the edge and the lake and the marker was now 825. Wow, that really changed. So t equals 100 years later. The distance is 825. If the edge of the lake withdrew from marker x at a linear rate, okay, so if we have a linear rate, that means we can find a constant slope, 825 minus 75 over 100 minus 0. And if you had used 2005 and 1905, you'd still end up with 100 like I do here. And here we end up with, let's see, 825 minus 75 is 750. I can take off a 0 and I get a slope of 7.5. Okay, and then they ask us, what would we have had in 1985? Well, if this is time equal to 0, then 1985 is 80 years later. So I want to know at time equal to 80. So I'm going to have to build this equation. We're going to use y equals mx plus b. And the reason I chose that is because I have this y-intercept, I have that initial amount, and I have a slope. The slope is 75 over 10. So y equals 75 over 10 times x plus 75. I'm going to plug that 80 in for our time, and I'm going to have y equals 75 over 10 times 80 plus 75. Well, here I can do some canceling, and I get 8 times 75, which is 560 plus 40, which is 600 plus 75, or 675. So my choice is A for number 17. 18. Lots of words. For a decorating project, Beatrice found the area and perimeter of a drawing she made of a beach scene. She found that the area of her rectangle was 144 square inches and the perimeter was 80 inches. Well, okay, so what does that mean? We've got a rectangle. This is width, width, length, length. We know the perimeter would be 2 lengths plus 2 widths, and she says the perimeter is 80. And I'm going to divide everything here by 2 to make this a little easier to work with. We also know that the area is 144. So area is length times width, and that's 144. In Chapter 7, we talked about solving systems of equations like this one. I recommend substitution here. I'm going to solve that first equation for one of the variables, w equals 40 minus L, and then I'm going to plug that in for the w in the second equation. So I'll be looking at L times 40 minus L equals 144. If I distribute, I end up with negative L squared plus 40L equals 144. And because I need to solve this quadratic, I'm going to move everything to one side and set the equation equal to 0. So I'm going to have 0 equals L squared minus 40L plus 144. I can factor this trinomial as L minus 36 and L minus 4, which means that L equals 4 or 36. If L is 4, and I plug that 4 back into this area formula, 4 times W is 144, so I divide by 4 and I get 36. Oh, isn't that interesting? So W would be 36. And if I plug this 36 in over here for L, and then divide both sides by 36, I get W equals 4. So my choices are 4 by 36 or 36 by 4. And so that is choice F. F for number 18. F for 18. Okay. Let's take a look at 19. Which of the following is equivalent to 6 times 10 to the 5th over 1.5 times 10 to the 7th? Well, 6 divided by 1.5 goes 4 times. And when the bases are the same and I'm dividing, I can subtract the exponents. 5 minus 7 is negative 2. And this corresponds with choice B. 20. A 7-digit phone number at university starts with the same 3-digit prefix. Okay, so we've got 7, but the first 3 numbers are the same. So we're going to ignore those numbers. How many choices do I have for each of these? 10, 10, 10, 10. So 10 to the fourth is my answer to this one, and that's K. There can only be 10,000 different phone numbers if all of them have the same three-digit prefix. Okay, 21. Cost to rent headphones at a listening library is $3.50 for the first hour, or any fraction thereof. So if we rent for 30 minutes, it's still $3.50. If we rent for 57 minutes, it's $3.50. If we rent for 1 minute, it's still $3.50. That's $2.50 for the second hour. So if we've got 1 hour and 1 minute, we're paying $3.50 for the first hour, and even though we only go 1 minute into the second hour, we're paying another $2.50 for that. So in the first 2 hours, I have to spend $3.50 plus $2.50, which is $6. Now we spent a total of $9.75. Minus the $6 gives me $3.75. It tells me here, beyond the first two, if you rent headphones, beyond the first two, you'll be paying $1.25 for each additional hour or part thereof. So if I divide this by 125, I'll get 3 more hours. Okay, so I've used 2 plus 3 more, sounds like 5 hours. So if I look at this, it says 212. 212 plus 5 hours gives me 712. Well, 5:30 would certainly work, but I could actually return mine later than that. I can't go as late as 7:30, 8, or 8:30, but I could go as late as 6:30 for this $9.75. Okay, 22. The degree measures of 4 angles of a quadrilateral form a geometric sequence with a common ratio of 2. Okay, well, I need to know 2 pieces of information in this problem. The first thing I need to know is what the heck geometric sequence is. And we haven't covered that. We won't be covering that until late April, early May. Sorry, I hope you got that in Algebra 2 with Mr. Cleese or Ms. Molly. Or that you watched our earlier video that dealt with sequences in series because I explained it there. Okay, so we've got a common ratio of 2, which means that this angle is going to be twice as big as this one, which will be twice as big as this one, which will be twice as big as this one. So if I call this one x, this would be twice as big, this would be twice as big as that, and this one over here would be twice as big as that. So we've got a total of 12, 13, 14, 15 x's. Now the other thing I need to know is how many degrees are inside of a quadrilateral. Think about a square. 90, 90, 90, 90. 4 90s is 360. We could also do this with any old figure by drawing in the diagonal and realizing we can get 2 triangles here. So we know that our 15x should equal 180. If I divide both sides by 15, I get x equals 12. 12 times 2 is 24. 24 times 2 is 48. And 48 times 2 is 96. I think I want to check that one again. Oh, that's where my mistake is. It's not 180, it's 360. Remember the 2 triangles that add up to 360. So this is 24, not 12. 24, 48, we double for 96, and then we double again, and so that largest angle is going to be 2 times 96, or 192. And that's why J is my answer for number 22. 23. 23 says, Ray FH bisects angle EFG. Bisects means cuts into two equal pieces. We know that EFH is 2n plus 34. We know that EFG is 140. Well, we could do this a couple ways. We could say this must also be 2n plus 34, and so 140 equals 2n plus 34 plus another 2n plus 34, and solve that equation. Or we could say that if this whole thing is equal to 140, and these are half of that, then 70 equals that angle EFH 2n plus 34. So I subtract 34 and I get 36 equals 2n, or n equals 18 degrees. And so our answer is B for number 23. B for 23. 24. 24 says 6x plus 10y equals 14, and 3x plus 4y equals 2. Well, if I double this row, I'll get 6x plus 10y equals 14, and 6x plus 8y equals 4. And if I subtract, 2y equals 10, and so y equals 5. If I plug that back into one of these equations, 3x plus 4 times 5 equals 2. 3x equals negative 18, so x equals negative 6. And they're asking us what the value of 5x plus 7y would be. So 5 times negative 6 plus 7 times 5. Negative 30 plus 35 is positive 5. And that is F. F for number 24. 25. Which of the following correctly solves the equation a minus b over 2 equals 6? Okay, so let's multiply both sides by 2. And I get a minus b equals 12. And if I subtract a from both sides, I get negative b equals 12 minus a, but I want to know what positive b is, so I better divide everywhere by negative 1. I get b equals positive divided by negative is negative 12, and negative divided by negative is positive a. So I've got a minus 12, and a minus 12 is choice E. E for number 25. 26. The product of which of the following results in a negative odd number? Negative odd number. Well, in order for the product to be negative, one of those numbers has to be positive and one has to be negative. Okay, so I can get rid of anything that's, say, 2 negatives or 2 positives. That means I can get rid of choice G. Now, let's think about an odd number. Can I take 2 times any number and get an odd number? Nope. So that means I can't do this with an even number. I can only get an odd number by multiplying 2 odd numbers together. So I need a negative odd number and a positive odd number. And that is choice K for number 26. 27. You know, one of the things I want to say about this test is, because look, we're at almost 30 minutes and I'm not at number 30 yet. So you think this is a fast pace, but I'm going slow. So what I want to say is, when I see a problem like 27 with all these words, I just feel like, is it worth the time? 27. We've got purple marbles, yellow marbles, red marbles, and black marbles. And originally, We've got 11 plus 11 plus 11 plus 11, or 44 marbles originally. Okay, and we know that 11 of those originally are purple. So we're going to pick marbles out, and we're not going to put them back in. We're just removing them, and all of them were purple. So we took 4 marbles away from the total, so the total is now 40. And we took 4 of these purple marbles away, and so now we only have 7 purples. So what's the probability that the 5th marble will also be purple? Well, there's 7 purples left and only 40 marbles to choose from. 7 over 40 is my answer, and that's why B works for me for 27. 28. Student in Miss Ruan's class must repeat a test if the student earns less than 70% of the points. There are 30 points available, so 70% of 30. And that's if they earn less than that. Okay, if their number of points is less than 70% of 30. Well, that means P can be less. If P is less than 21, they have to retake the test. And then it says, if Oliver scored P points on the test and therefore must repeat it, which of the following must be true? Well, he got less than 21 points. Sorry, Oliver. H is your choice. 29. 29 is really painful because they give us this total of 16 1/9 miles, and that's equal to the 3 days worth of painting, 5 8/27 plus 3 2/3 plus our second day. Well, with a calculator, we could just, add these, subtract them from 16 1/9 to get x by itself. I didn't have a calculator, so I had to make a common denominator here. I ended up with 7 4/27 when I was done, and that turned out to be choice B. 30. Okay. So 30 gives us similar triangles. We've got this big triangle with 108 and 180. And we've got this smaller triangle, let's call that H, with 81 and H. So I'm going to write the proportion. This is to this, as this is to this. 108 is to 180, as 81 is to H. I'm going to cross multiply and get 108H equals 81 times 180. And then I'll divide by 108 to get my value of H. So it turns out here that H is, what is H? It turns out that H is 81 times 180 divided by 108. I get 135 degrees, 135. So this is 135. This whole thing is 180. This is 135. And in this question, they're asking us, what's this change? How much did it change position? So 180 minus 135 gives me 45. And that's choice H. H for number 30. 31. What is the distance in units between -5, 4 and 6, -2? Well, the distance formula says square root 6 minus a minus 5 squared plus -2 minus 4 squared, which is 11 squared plus -6 squared. Or square root of 121 plus 36, which is going to be square root of 157. The distance is square root of 157, and that's choice C. C for number 31. 32. Cynthia decorates the ceiling of her bedroom with stars that glow in the dark. She puts one star on the first night, and then she adds 2 more the second night, and she adds 3 more the third night, and so on. We can see that this is an arithmetic series. We're going up by the same amount each time, but we're talking about a series because we're adding all these values together, not just listing them with commas. As I mentioned in the earlier video, and as we'll explore in Chapter 9, the formula for the sum of an arithmetic sequence is S of n equals n over 2 a sub 1 plus a sub n. For us, there are 30 days, so we want the sum of 30, which is 30 over 2. The value of the first term is 1, and the value of the 30th term, well, if we put up 1 more each day, on the 30th day, we'll be putting up 30 of them. So this is 15 times 31, which is 465. 465, or J, is my answer for 32. 33. Side PQ is 12 inches long, side QR is 41, which cannot be the length of side PR. So there's this triangle, and we need to know the triangle inequality theorem, PQR. And we know that PQ is 12, and we know that QR is 41. And what can we say about this? Well, I remember from geometry that PR has to be smaller than 12 plus 41, which is 53. Oh, there are none of them that are bigger than 53, so that works for PR. And 41 minus 12. So 41 minus 12 is 29. PR has to be between 29 and 53 in order to be able to make a triangle. If PR is smaller than 29, for example, 20, then we're trying to do 20 plus 12 is 32, and yeah, that doesn't seem like a problem, but it is a problem. So I'm not going to go there because I'm looking at the time, and I'm just going to know that I subtract the 2 sides for one end, and I add the 2 sides for the other end. And this gives me choice A. A is the only one not within this range. 34. Which of the following is equivalent to 5d squared minus 2 over 20d? Well, we can split this into 2 fractions. One of them would be 5d squared over 20d, and the other one would be 2 over 20d. I can take a d out of each of these. I can cancel a 5 out. I'll have d over 4. I can take a 2 out of each of these, leaving me 1 on top, and a 10 and a d, not on the top, but on the bottom. So which one is this? This looks like choice J. Choice J. 35. Mirav's school laid non-slick tiles on the floor around the pool to reduce injury. These non-slip tiles extend 5 meters beyond the pool on all sides. What's the area? Well, there's 2 ways we can do this problem. We can find the area of this big rectangle minus the area of this little rectangle, and that was going to be 35 times 60. How did I get those numbers? Well, remember they said extends 5 meters beyond the pool. So if this is 25, I'm going to add 5 over here and 5 over here. 25 plus 5 plus 5 is 35. And here I've got 50 plus 5 plus 5 gives me 60. So the big outside rectangle has an area of 35 by 60. And the original pool is 25 by 50. So we could do 35 times 60 minus 25 times 50. That's one way to do this problem, and it's probably the fastest and easiest. I went about doing this by saying, okay, well, this distance is 35, and this distance is 35, and here, if I cut these off, these would be 50 and 50. So I had two 50s and two 35s, which gave me a total of 170 for length times a width of 5, and I ended up with 850, which is why B was my answer for this problem. B for number 35. But you know, with a calculator in your hand, you may just want to do 35 times 60 minus 25 times 50. Okay, next, synchronized swimming team. Each swimmer needs an area within the pool. Without colliding, each area is 5 by 5. Well, we notice that our pool is 50 meters this way and 25 meters this way. And if everyone needs 5 meters, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Suddenly, I want to check my answer to that. 35. I was about to say my answer for this one was 50, because I can get 5 across and 10 this way. So 5 by 10, 50 people can be on the team. And that's the case. Choice B. G is 50 for number 36. 36 is G. 37. Merav pays $4 a ticket to her school's first swim meet to watch her classmates compete. While there, she buys a slice of pizza and a soda, $3.75 and $1.75. So let's see, $3.75 plus $1.75, $5.50. And she pays 10% sales tax on that. Well, 10% of $5.50 means we move the decimal point over 1, and that's 55 cents worth of sales tax. You could always take 0.1 times 550, but that'll amount to the same thing as moving this decimal over 1. So now we're looking at $6.05, but don't forget, she also had to buy a ticket to get in. $6.05 plus $4, she's got $10.05 spent today, and that's choice C. C for 37. 38. We've got a circle, we've got a center, we've got some radii, and we've got this chord. We're told that this is 40 degrees, and you know, we know that this is a radius and that this is a radius. So if this angle is 40, this one must be at 40 because we're looking at an isosceles triangle. The triangle has 180 degrees in it. 180 minus 40 tells me that angle F should be 100 degrees, and that's choice H. H for number 38. 39. Okay, $10,000 expenses. She wants to reduce her operating expenses for August by making office more energy efficient, asking the landlord to lower her rent. Good luck with that. She hopes to reduce her electricity expenses $700 and her rent by $1,300. So if we take the electricity bill, which was $1,200, and reduce it by $700, that'll be she's only paying $500 for electricity. The rent was $7,300, and she wants to reduce that by $1,300, which would be an even $6,000. So what are the total for all the bills now? We've got $500 for electricity, we've got $6,000 for rent, we've got $150 for water, $350 for trash, and $1,000 for office supplies. Well, that's $650, $7, $1,000, $2,000, $8,000. $8,000 total. And it says here what percent of her August expenses will be office supplies. Well, this $1,000 was office supplies. 1,000 over 8,000 is 1 over 8, or 12.5%. If you take 1 and divide it by 8 in the calculator, you'll get 0.125, or 12.5%. That's choice D. 40. Assuming Q is positive, then the difference between 14Q and 5Q is always divisible by what? Well, what is 14Q minus 5Q? That would be 9Q. So any number that is 9Q is going to be divisible by 9, because there's a 9 there. And so this is G. G for number 40. 41. Ron earns $1,800 for 6-week assignment. While working at the 6-week assignment, he works a minimum of 20 hours each week. His hourly rate of pay, therefore, depends on how many hours he works. Okay, so we can say let's say that P is hourly rate of pay. And he's going to work 20 hours a week. So 20 times P dollars per hour. So hours would cancel, giving him dollars. And we're going to do this for 6 weeks. And this should amount to less than that $1,800. So that's, if I divide both sides by 6, I get 20p is less than 300. If I divide both sides by 20, I get p is less than 15. So rate of pay is less than $15 per hour, and that's choice A. A for 41. 42. I didn't count 42 when I scored yours, but 42 would be finding the distance between these two. We're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, 2 plus I and 6 plus 4I. In our, or I should say, I'm going to use the distance formula, square root of 6 minus 2 squared plus 4I minus I squared. That's going to be the square root of 4 squared plus 3I squared, which is the square root of 16 plus 3 squared is 9, I squared. Remember what I squared was from chapter 2? I squared is -1. -1 times 9 -1 times 9 is -9 plus 16 is square root of 7. But I'm pausing because oh, that's why I'm pausing. Sorry, back it up. Let's start this one again. Okay. See, this is why I didn't count this one. We know that P is 2 plus I, and we know that Q is 6 plus 4I. And if I add these together, that's what I'm doing, or am I subtracting them? Oh, goodness. 42. I'm subtracting them. I get negative 4 minus 3I. This is what I use in the Pythagorean theorem. So negative 4 squared plus negative 3I squared gives me 16 plus, it happened again. Why did that happen again? I swear the answer to this is 5, but I keep not getting 5. Negative 3 squared is 9. I squared. I squared is negative 1. Well, isn't this interesting? I keep getting negative square root of 7, which is G. I'm going with G. I thought it was J. I'm going to go look up this one again. But I'm going to get this video done first. And if it bothers you like it bothers me, you can come ask me about it. Okay, 43. We need to know what question mark is. I see a right triangle here with 8 feet and 11 feet and question mark. Okay, well, what trig function could I use with this angle? Adjacent and hypotenuse. We know that's cosine of theta. That would be 8 over 11. But I want to solve for theta. So I'm going to take the inverse cosine of both sides. Theta is cosine inverse 8 over 11. And that corresponds to choice C. 44. 44 comes with this picture. It's actually a proof of the Pythagorean theorem, though it's not labeled as such. Set, we know this is a square, and so we've got the perimeter of polygon CT ZXY. CT ZXY. X plus Y plus Z plus 1 more X. So X plus Y plus Z plus 1 more X. 3 X's plus a Y plus a Z. And that corresponds with choice F. F for 44. 45. What do we know about the angles? Well, we've got angle BYC, and that's this one here. And that definitely looks bigger than 90 degrees. So that's bigger than 90. And then we've got angle AXF. AXF. Wow, that's this big angle here. That's even bigger than the last one. So AXF is bigger than angle BYC. And where does EZD fit in here? Angle EZD. Oh, well, that looks like 90 degrees. That would be the smallest of all of them. EZD. So this is the biggest, this is the middle, this is smallest at 90 degrees. And we're asked to go from least to biggest. So we want to start with this one, then go to this one, then have this one last. And that's choice E for 45. 46. They say if 2x equals z, then what's the value of cosine x, y, z? Okay, so let's draw that triangle, x, y, z. So right angle here, And they're saying z equals 2x's. Okay, so they'd like to know the cosine of this angle, cosine of x, y, z. So the cosine of this angle is going to be the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. Cosine of angle y is going to be x over 2x, or 1/2. That's the value of the cosine, 1/2. So that's F. F for number 46. 47. 47 says the sum of 4 consecutive integers is t. Okay, so let's look at 4 consecutive even integers. 10, 12, 14, 16. So if this is x, then this is x plus 2, and this is x plus 4, and this is x plus 6. And the sum of these is t. So we're going to add these all up, and that's going to be t. 1, 2, 3, 4 x's. 2 plus 4 is 6, plus 6 is 12. So t equals 4x plus 12. Now they ask for the sum of the two largest integers, and we might say, well, that's just going to be 2x plus 10. Except they want this in terms of t. So I have to solve this equation over here for t. And I get 4x equals t minus 12. And then I'll divide everywhere by 4. And I'll get that x equals t over 4 minus 3. And then I'll put this into this expression that represents the sum of the two largest consecutive even integers. 2 times t over 4 minus 3. Don't forget to distribute and get 2t over 4 minus 6, or t over 2 minus 6. And this corresponds to choice C. C for number 47. 48. We spent a lot of time doing transformations this year. We're transforming y equals x squared so that our vertex is located here at negative 4, 1. This means we're going to shift left 4 and up 1. So y equals x plus 4, inside is opposite land, squared, shift up 1. That's why k is the answer to number 48. 49. 49 is a horrible problem. Horrible, horrible problem. Oh my God. Piggy bank has pennies, dimes, nickels, and quarters for a total of $5.29. There are 3 times as many dimes as there are pennies. 3 times as many dimes as there are pennies. So if I take the number of dimes and multiply by 3, I get pennies? Or is it dimes divided by 3 gives me pennies? Well, let's read this again. 3 times as many dimes as there are pennies. So if I take the number of dimes and then multiply by 3, no, pennies, 3 times the number of dimes, no, there are 3 times as many dimes as there are pennies. Yes, so if I had 10 pennies, I would have 30 dimes. If I have 30 dimes, that's the number of pennies times 3. Whew, there are 3 times as many dimes as pennies. If there are 30 dimes and 10 pennies, I know that the number of dimes, the number of dimes equals 3 times the number of pennies. Okay. Oh my goodness. 1 more dime than the number of nickels. The number of dimes is 1 more than the number of nickels. Nickels plus 1. What else do we know? 2 more quarters than dimes. The number of quarters is dimes plus 2. 2 more quarters than dimes. Okay, and of course, D is the number of dimes. Well, we've got all these coins, and each of them also has a value. Pennies have a value of 1 cent, and nickels have a value of 5 cents, and dimes have a value of 10 cents, and quarters have a value of 25 cents. And that total equals 529. Okay, so what do we know? We know that from this equation, P equals D over 3. So I'm going to replace this with D over 3. And then I'm going to do 0.05 nickels. Well, if I take this equation and subtract 1 from both sides, nickels equals D minus 1. And then I'm going to add 0.10 times the number of dimes. And finally, 0.25 quarters. Well, quarters is D plus 2. D plus 2. So I've got some distributing to do. I've got some distributing to do. I've got a lot of like terms to combine. I need to do something with this. And all of that will equal 529. So, when I'm done with all of that work, which is really horrible, and I did it out here, we see that the number of dimes ends up being 484 divided by 0.4 plus 0.01 over 3. I got 12 dimes. But our question was, how many nickels are there? And nickels was 1 fewer than dimes, so I have 11 nickels. Oh my God, look how time-consuming this was. I can't even believe we talked about it. Especially since we're now at minute 102, and we're only on problem 49. No wonder many of you left the last 10 blank. So, A for number 49. Okay, 50, last 10. Here we go. The mean of 5 numbers is 87. So, if I add up these 5 numbers and divide by 5, I get 87. Which I guess means the sum of all these numbers is 87 times 5, or 435. That's the sum of 5 numbers. One of those numbers is 75. If we take 75 away, I'm left with 360. So 360 is the sum of the other 4 numbers. And it says, what's the mean of the other 4 numbers? Well, that mean is going to be that sum divided by how many numbers we've got, which is 90. So J is my answer to number 50. 50 is J. 51. Jenny is home. Then her car is in the driveway. If the previous statement is true, then which of the following must also be true? Well, in my geometry class 30 years ago, we talked about the contrapositive. And the positive, if the original statement is true, then the contrapositive must always be true. And the way we make a contrapositive is we flip the if and then statements, and then we negate. So if I flip and negate, I get choice E must be always true. Contrapositive, that's old school. 52. We've got y raised to the 0.2 raised to the a squared minus 20. Yes, that really does say a squared minus 20 equals y to the 1. Well, if the terms are equal and the bases are the same, then I know that the powers must be equal. And when I'm raising a power to a power, I know I'm supposed to multiply those. So 0.2 a squared and 0.2 times 20. Well, 0.2 times 20 is 4. So 0.2 a squared minus 4 equals 1. 0.20 is 1/5 a squared equals 5, because I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Multiply both sides by 5 to clear out that fraction. A squared is 25, and so a equals plus or minus 5. And that's choice J. J for 52. 53. Simplify this expression. The expression is, there it is, cosecant x tangent x. Well, we know cosecant is 1 over sine, and we know tangent is sine over cosine. So we can do some canceling and get 1 over cosine, or secant x. And that's why E is my answer to 53. 54. Evan, Ron play rock, scissors, paper. Each round, 3 equally likely outcomes for Evan. Win, lose, or tie. Evan earns 2 points for a win. That means that Evan has a 1/3 chance of winning and getting 2 points. He also has a 1/3 chance of tying and getting 0 points. And he has a 1/3 chance of losing and getting 0 points. And he's going to play this 5 times. So these go away. We're left with 2/3 times 5, or 10/3 points. I expect him to have 3 1/3 point, or something like that, for number 54, and that is choice J. Lots of J's today. 55. Volume of a sphere. Well, we know the formula for volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. And we know that volume is 288 pi equals 4/3 pi r cubed. If I multiply both sides by the reciprocal and divide by pi, I end up with 72 times 3, which is 216, equals r to the third. If I take the cube root of both sides, I get r equals 6. Now they ask me for the surface area. Well, luckily we know the surface area formula is 4 pi r squared. And since our radius is 6, we've got 4 pi times 6 squared, which is 36 times 4, or 144 pi square inches. Yes, and that's choice E. E for 55. 56. 3 log base x of x to the negative 2. Well, I use the power rule to bring this down in front. 3 times negative 2 log base x of x. And I remember from chapter 3 that log base x of x is 1. We called it log base b of b. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. So this expression is equal to negative 6, which is choice F. 57. Last page. Jamie drew a triangle bounded by these lines and then reflected this across the y-axis. Okay, so let's see. We've got the y-axis. We've got x equals negative 2. y equals negative x. And we've got y equals 8. So if we reflect this across here and look at this, we're still looking at being below 8. And now, instead of negative 2, we're over here at positive 2. X would be greater than or equal to positive 2. And we want to be above this line, so we want y is greater than or equal to x. So which is this? Not A, because y is less than x. Oh, there it is, B. B is our choice, where x is greater than or equal to 2, y is less than or equal to 8, and y is greater than or equal to x. 58. The angle shown, standard position, one side. Hey, we've done this. We did this in chapter 4. Our angle goes here. We've got an ordered pair of -12, -5. And they ask us, what's the sine of theta? Well, we know the sine of theta is opposite over hypotenuse. And if you've been paying attention to your triples this semester, you'll notice that this is a 5, 12, 13 triangle. So the sine of theta is going to be opposite over hypotenuse, which is choice H for 58. 59. We're told here that we have a parallelogram ABCD. So let me draw a parallelogram A, B, C, D. Notice these sides, if this is a parallelogram, would be parallel. And what do we know about the slopes of parallel lines? The slopes of parallel lines are the same. So I propose to find the slope of AB. A is at 7, 6, B is at 5, 1, and I find the slope. Rise over run, 6 minus 1, 7 minus 5, gives me 5 over 2. So the slope of this line must also be 5 over 2. So which of our choices has a slope of 5/2? And that's choice A. Our last problem, there's a function in terms of x's and y's such that x minus y squared plus x plus y squared. All right, so I'm going to simplify this first by FOILing. I'm going to have x squared minus 2xy plus y squared. And now for this one, x squared plus 2xy plus y squared. I notice that these cancel each other out. I've got one of these plus one of these for 2x squared, and one of these plus one of these for 2y squared. So this is our function in terms of x and y. But we're asked to evaluate the function at c squared d squared, which means I'm going to replace x's with c squared and y's with d squared. When I raise a power to a power, I multiply them till I have 2c to the 4th. And when I raise a power to a power, I multiply them, so I have 2d to the 4th. And this corresponds to choice G. Okay, so that's problem number 60. We're all set. And I'm going to go and see if I can look up that thing about distance between complex numbers. I hope you have a great weekend, and I hope this helps preparing for your ACT next week. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to help. Take care.